You are good to go now.
Good to go now. Hello, I'm Daryl Jones, and allow me to welcome everyone and call this meeting for the Program Services Committee meeting of the Children's Services Council. First things first. It's 5:04. First things first. Did y'all see that wonderful space right there?
Yeah.
What's that fantastic space you have over there? That is just everything. I'm just so happy that we're meeting in our real space. Also, before we move forward, I want to acknowledge two very special members of the Children's Services Council who have been acknowledged as 25, well, 2 of the 25 women to know. Our own Holly McPhail. Congratulations, Holly. And one of my favorite principals in all of Leon County is the heartbeat of District 3, Carmen Carter. Also, the leadership Tallahassee Service Servant Leader of the Year. So, and this is her last. But congratulations to you, an inaugural member of the Children's Services Council, duly appointed. I just can't say enough about what has been your impact and influence. Our first vice chair, and now as you rotate off the board, I want you to know on behalf of this committee, your opinion and your perspective throughout this entire process, the needs assessment and everything else. As a subject matter expert and phenomenal educator, your presence will be missed. So thank you, and we acknowledge and are grateful for your time. Now, by way of a reminder of our in-person audience, please complete a comment card and provide it to Mr. Jacinta Clay. If you would like to address the committee at today's meeting, opportunities for public comment will be noted on the agenda. We'll now have our roll call.
Mr. O'Brien, Ms. McFadden, here. Dr. Glenn, here. Ms. Connor, present. Mr. Jones,
Yes.
you have a form.
All right. So do we have anyone for general public comment? Oh, I'm sorry. First, is there a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented?
So, a second.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it. Now any general public comment you're saying?
There's no public comment in it.
Nope. All right. Okay, great. All right, so now we'll move into high quality early learning services, who will provide an overview of our agenda items. Ms. Green.
Yes, thank you so much, Chair Jones. So we're, as you can see on the agenda, we have 2 pieces. One is a presentation on a program, and the second is a discussion by some of our early learning providers in the community. So at this time, I would like to welcome to the podium Ellen Propolkovich. I think I got that right, Propolkovich. And who is the director of the Center for Study and Promotions of Communities, Families, and Children, and Ty Cole, who is the assistant director of Rebound and Recovery, as well as the curriculum developer, both with the FSU College of Social.
And before you present, yes. Our camera's being a little finicky, so I'm just gonna actually turn it. So anybody who's watching at home can see you. Oh, it's the rotating part's not working, so I'm gonna be the manual rotator.
Yeah, the owl is not rotating. Well, thank you all for having us. And yes, it is Ellen Kekolkevich. So I know it's a mouthful, but we appreciate everyone being here tonight, and we appreciate the opportunity to present on Rebound and Recovery. We got into this space as a result of Hurricane Michael. We have as you know, a FSU campus in Panama City, and we were asked to deal with some of the traumatic events that children had experienced there. And that's how we got into the space of really responding to needs of children in the Panhandle as a result of Hurricane Michael. And from there, it kind of has blossomed, and we've gone statewide with it. And with that, I'm going to let Ty, who is the developer of this curriculum and the main implementer for the program, I'll let her describe it, and then we're happy to answer any questions. We've kind of kept our presentation to a minimal so that we have time for you to ask some questions.
So Rebound and Recovery is a cognitive behavioral intervention for early childhood. It has now grown to include adolescents too. So there's a program for adolescents as well. So when we started, we partnered with the Learning Pavilion to do our beta testing along with Head Start so that we could see it in action and make some changes to it. And what we were seeing is that, especially coming out of the pandemic, that children were experiencing lots of classroom disruptions. They were just trying to get settled back into a new normal. And so this really was developed and came along at a perfect time to meet the needs of children, because we don't know what happened at home or what they were exposed to. And every child needs the ability to regulate themselves, to understand their emotions, to understand how they can be empowered to regulate their body and be present there in the classroom. And 46% of children have experienced a trauma by the time that they have reached age 17. So that's half of the children that are in our classroom that experience a trauma. And our teachers and educators are not really equipped and prepared to deal with that. I just left a classroom of educators because I'm getting my PhD, and it's all full room of educators. And that's one of the things that we talk about a lot. It's about what's happening in that classroom and how we can help prepare one another and to help them go into the field more prepared. And so Rebound and Recovery is answering that in the field, working with early providers like the Learning Pavilion and some of our Leon County schools as well. And as Ellen mentioned, it has now gone statewide, and we have lots of different ways in which we implement it. So we understand that the one size fits all doesn't always work. And so we have come up with a model in which we have the curriculum, it's online, it's self-paced, but we meet the educators where they are. And by that, we hold technical assistance so that we can help them figure out that implementation piece. We can help them walk through that. But there may also be that child who is having a difficulty in their classroom so that they can come and ask us questions, and we can help them in real time understand what might be going on with that child, give them extra tools to use. And a lot of the curriculums that are out there that use some of the same techniques, they're all based on the teacher being the one who's implementing these. So the teacher's having to redirect them. With Rebound and Recovery, we wrote the curriculum so it's the child that's learning these skills and they can implement the skills themselves. So it's not always reliant on that teacher having to be the one saying, now remember to do this or remember to do that. And if you look on the front of your page here, you can see that Rebound and Recovery in the past 2 years has grown quite a lot throughout the state of Florida. So more than 3,100 children have been served by the program so far. We have been able to put through the program 328 educators and professionals, and along with training 30 social work students as interns that have been going into these child care centers to help with the implementation. And currently there's 4 research projects going on about it.
And I will say from that first page too, that make sure that you understand that it is a 3-pronged approach, that it does not only targets the early educator, it also targets parents as teachers essentially, and also, as Ty mentioned, the child themselves.
Thank you. So then turning to the back is some of the research that we've been gathering from Rebound and Recovery as we've been implementing it across the state. And so from educators, what they're telling us is that the ease of implementation of this program is almost a 10, it's 9.7. Their interest in the elements of it is a 10. The likelihood to use the program in the future is a 10 out of 10. That one just amazes me, because sometimes you're given a curriculum and you're like, okay, I'll do it once and that's it, and it goes onto the shelf. But they're saying that they're continuing to use it. They're actually seeing the progress that the students are making, and it's encouraging them to continue to use these skills in their classroom. And then the overall positive impact of the students is a 10 out of 10. And so what we're also seeing is that ongoing impact that it's doing, because research shows that whenever these skills are used in the classroom, then it allows the students to be present. If they're experiencing trauma, if they're experiencing emotional distress at that time, they're not able to be physically present there and to learn. And so the data shows that by students using these skills, they're able to be present in that classroom, they're able to have academic successes, and classroom disruptions are then decreased as well.
Can you identify schools and centers that you use in this program?
Kim right here at the Learning Pavilion is one of our amazing partners in this, FSU Childcare. And then it was, and I'm looking at Brooke, it was Rudiger and Springwood.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? On the back here, the comment, there's some of statements that we've collected, but I wanted to highlight the one at the very bottom because this one comes from a parent at the Learning Pavilion this past fall and says, I want to give a big thank you to Rebound and Recovery. We've been trying to work with our child to express feelings. And last week he came home and was able to articulate his emotions. He said that he learned about his emotions, and emotions are happy, sad, and worried. And when I get upset, I need to calm down and think. I really appreciate the breakthrough. It is a work in progress, and I've seen a change in him since he's been in Rebound and Recovery. I greatly appreciate it. And that's what classroom teachers are telling us too, is that they're seeing these changes in their students and they're advocating for themselves. And that's one of the biggest things I've loved to see is when that child understands what's going on and then they can be their own advocate and they've been empowered.
And the philosophy around Rebound and Recovery is a public health model. It is not a model that a child has to be screened into. Every child in the classroom is receiving it. And so it is not something that you have to be diagnosed first to receive that as we think of it as an inoculation, as a prevention. I'm sorry, you have a question.
Oh, you can't.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah.
Our guests.
But Ellen made a great point with that. And when we were developing it, that was one of the main goals, was to remove barriers, because in other things that we've seen, there was barriers of the child having to have a diagnosis or the curriculum only being able to be implemented by a clinician. And so it was specifically written for the educator.
I'm curious to know the expansion of your program.
Okay, tell me more about like what you're
I mean, you identified Springwood, Learning Pavilion, and Rudiger,
correct.
right, in our local community. What other schools do you intend to facilitate with this program? Because I'm excited about it, because you talk about responding to trauma-based issues that our children have had. We just saw a headline just most recently about
Yesterday.
what Carmen is dealing with and trying to find unique and inventive ways to manage discipline. We don't want to enhance learning loss by putting children out of classrooms, suspending them. We talk about this a great deal at every school board meeting. What tools are we using? This seems like a worthwhile tool. However, there are communities, census tracts that we served and have identified with our need assessment that could use this type of unique and innovative approach to meeting the needs of our children. And right now, that's the question: what is your intended expansion?
We are going anywhere that will let us in the door, really, and just we're open to those conversations. We have different models, and so we are able to adapt it to the need of the school or the organization. And what you're saying about the not taking students out of the classroom, a really unique model that we've been developing with some individuals in Tampa is for the teens, in which instead of expelling students or sending them to in-school service, they're going to start using Rebound and Recovery as a program instead of sending the students to that ISS.
And to be more specific, is, for example, when Ty speaks of the project in Tampa, we're funded by the Cigna Foundation to provide services in Tampa and Orange counties. We also have a very robust program with the Boys and Girls Club in Palm Beach, and that we're funded by the Community Foundation in Palm Beach. So we have 18 sites. And so we are kind of limited by sort of like where our funders would like us to be. So that is, a very specific answer to your question in terms of what our plans are for the future.
So this is music to my ears because I have a second chance program at my school. You knew I was ready for this. Oh, I was.
No.
Well, let me
Exactly.
why. This is music to my ears because in this second chance program, I have all of the students that are expelled from elementary school. And they're in a small classroom at my school, but each one of those children have had some type of trauma in their lives. But I don't, and I've tried, and we work with multiple entities to get services into our classrooms to give our kids counseling, but this is something that I've never heard of. So I'm really excited about when you all call me so that we can meet and plan this all out. So I'm really excited.
I know where to reach you.
Yes, you do. So if I understood it correctly, it is a module that the teachers go through. How long is this whole process?
So that for the early education one, there are 15 modules. They're all online, self-paced for the teacher to learn how to implement rebound and recovery. And then we have those technical support calls to continue to support them. In the classroom, the curriculum is 10 lessons. And from that, there's then add-ons of which they can continue to use like the emotion meter and the skills that they're learning. So it takes about 15 hours to complete, and FlyC gives 1.5 CEUs for it.
So we can certainly follow up and provide you, we have some things we can show you online and sort of give you a sense of what it looks like. Yeah, it is. I mean, there is some commitment required, obviously, to have the teachers trained. And what we've done in some Palm Beach, as well as the Learning Pavilion, we have provided additional support through having a MSW student come and help facilitate, which it gives them experience in the classroom, which a lot of social workers, particularly those that are wanting to go into education, gives them that chance too. So it's as a field experience. They've been at Learning Pavilion, for example, as well as the Boys and Girls Club in Palm Beach.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Glenn.
Thank you. I think you were first. You're sure? Okay, all right. So you answered part of my question because I did want to understand like how was it laid out. So thank you for explaining that. The second part of my question is for the providers, for the staff that go through the program. Do you have any data? Are you collecting any data that shows that their ability to work with students that have these behavioral issues, that they have better skills to be able to do that? Like what type of data shows the efficacy of the program?
So that's a great question. Right now, we just had one. It's actually in the works and beginning. We have one that's from the University of West Georgia. That's about an article about to be written about that piece. But then with some of the early educators, I know there's some from Springwood and Rudiger that's participating in it. And also Learning Pavilion, we're starting that study right now and asking those questions. But we have been doing a survey at the middle of the program and at the end of the program with our educators. So we have been getting, but that's more of a qualitative than a quantitative. So it's a lot of comments like the one that you see on the back here about the program.
But that's why we did provide you what data we had gathered.
When will that study be done? I'd love
So 2 of them are being written right now for publication. And then the one with the teachers that are here in Leon County, that one is we're in the recruitment phase. So I've just got the first wave of data that came in for that one. So, and that one's being conducted by the College of Education for us.
Thank you, Ms. McFerrin.
So first of all, hi, Ellen. I see you in really interesting things you're involved in. I'm very familiar with the Momentous Institute out of Dallas, and it sounds like this is a very similar product that you're delivering, and they deliver it all over the country. And I was wondering, having worked on this, I know that a lot of that is grant funded. How does your cost per student work, and how are you primarily?
So right now, we're primarily, Ellen, you'll take that one, primary funding.
Well, like I said, we really just apply for grants. We get them for a certain area, Tampa, Orlando. Same with the Boys and Girls Club. So it really varies on terms of like how many students they want covered at what level, what age group, what staff they already have, what they want trained. Right now, the only cost that I can absolutely tell you what it is the online certification. So that is at $350 right now.
Yeah, because I know that Momentous has a lot of different ways they do theirs too. They have a 6-week training with therapists that's very involved and trains the teachers, and then they have some later trainings as well. So I mean, when I was the head of Art Ridge Foundation, we funded them to go into multiple places across the country. So I really love what you guys are doing.
And so it's just like where we've been asked sometimes to add in is add some on-site staff, which we've done in Palm Beach, or then that follow-up technical assistance through Ty, who is a licensed clinical social worker, then that just changes the cost. So it really has varied, but the online certification is $350. And as we indicated on your handout, we are endorsed by the Department of Children and Family, and they're paying a stipend of, I think, $250, correct?
I think it's $215, and then we have, we're trying to meet educators where they are. So we have a discount code right now for educators. So if they get that stipend, they can use the discount code, and it would actually bring it down to being free for the educator.
Thank you so very much for your presentation. We're real grateful
Yes.
to have you here. One of the things that we have talked about at great length is the symbiotic relationship that should exist between the academy and the community. And this shows us the impact when the academy comes to bring its resources and intellect to bear to respond to what we know are the challenges that we deal with related to children. So thank you so very, very much.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Mrs. Green.
Thank you. And just to close the loop on that, the reason why, so when we met with Ellen and Ty, and having ongoing conversations with our early learning community, part of what they talk about is that 21st century skill, dealing with the rebounding and recovery of trauma that may be going on. And so we thought it would be a good time to bring that presentation to you as a committee just before you start hearing from some of the providers from early learning. So at this time, we're going to go into some provider presentation and a discussion. It'll be a facilitated discussion so that you can hear from practitioners in the field, and we can make sure that as we're looking at the strategic framework for high quality early learning, that we are developing it in a way that meets the real need, coupled with what our needs assessment says and what we know to be research-based, evidence-based practicing, and then in some cases, promising practice. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Holly Bale, our special projects manager, who is responsible for convening these professionals for us.
Thank you, guys. Hi, everyone. Super excited to be having this conversation, and just another thanks to Ellen and Ty for their presentation on rebound and recovery. The group that you have before you, sitting here with you at the table, represents actual providers in our community. But we also asked our partners at the ELC and Leon County Schools to be present for the conversation. So if we get into questions and answers that the direct providers might not know the answers to, although these individuals probably already do, but any type of influence of what the ELC is doing in this space or Leon County Schools is doing in this space, Brooke and Melanie are with us. And so I'd love to invite them up to come to the table now as we kind of go into this. These have asked Ms. Rita Brown from Brownsville Prep, Ms. Kim Ziny from the Learning Pavilion, Mr. Roy Keister from Scottsdale Academy, and Ms. Tamika from Our Blessings, which is our neighbor childcare facility, like literally 2000, we're 2002, she's 2007, to be with us today, to kind of share just kind of what they're seeing, the major issues are and kind of potential solutions for them. And so they've met, they've chatted, and they're going to kind of each, the four of them will each have an opportunity to kind of speak for a few moments to share them, and then to really go into discussion. with that, I don't know if we just like want to start at the end and then go down. Oh, sure. I don't know, Ms. Smith, if that's okay with you to throw you on the spot or to start, or do you want them to start on that side?
Start on
That's right. All right, that's great. I'm happy to come back to you.
Person, everybody always wants to quiet down, so I figured I'd give somebody else the floor today.
I do appreciate that. I will remind you that for the purposes of this, we have asked each of them to speak for just about 3 to 4 minutes each, and then be able to go into question and answer for you.
So I'm Rita Brown. I own the Brownsville Preparatory Institute here in Tallahassee, Florida, for the past 17 years. And I'm really very happy that we're able to have this conversation, because so very often these conversations are held in silos. And at the end of the day, as providers, we walk out of the building saying, they don't even know anything about what we do every day or how we do it or what we need. So I'm really happy to have this conversation. One of the biggest topics that I wanted to bring to the floor was, of course, staffing and incentivizing of staffing in order to help us help children. That does not mean that I'm interested in seeing the board pay for our staff, but we are losing big time because we do not have the ability to keep up with, say, what Leon County provides in salaries. We don't have the ability to keep up with the qualifications of staffing. And when I say we, I may not always be personally speaking of myself, because I do believe that I am probably a unicorn in the Frenchtown community. But I know a lot of providers that are in those communities where they kind of get a bad badge of courage because they may not have the quality care that is needed. They may not have the quality facilities that are needed in order for children to grow and expand. But at the same time, we can't hold them accountable to that, because if they cannot charge the parents what some of the other centers are able to charge, they cannot pay what some of the other centers are also asking to pay, asking to be paid. So with that said, I'm hoping that we can find some kind of a solution that can turn that around for them. I know that I'm able to do so because I've decided that I'm able to take most of the resources that come out of my business and delegate back into staff, as opposed to my own personal, life or lifestyle. But I know that that's not a possibility for a lot of the centers that I know of. So I'm hoping that through this conversation and discussion, we can find a way to help those places, which of course in turn helps us as well, to do the things that we do. So I'm looking forward to hearing some more of this conversation be had and see some of your thoughts and ideas on it as well.
Okay. Hi. I'm Kim Siney with the Learning Pavilion, and I want to take a minute to thank the council members for your commitment to our community and the level of responsibility that you take with the intention of the dollars that are getting funneled through CSC. As homeowner and taxpayer, and also as a mom, and being in the field, I'm very excited that you guys are listening and invited us to the table today to talk to you a little bit about what we're facing. When we talk about the need for access to quality care in our community and how do we bridge that gap, we are facing pervasive and systemic workforce crisis. There are less people entering the field. As the minimum wage has increased, that rollout felt a lot different for providers as much larger competitive employers, not in our field, but Walmart or McDonald's were able to jump to that next level because they're able to reduce employees. We are not able to jump so fast by reducing our staff because we need those staff in the classrooms with the kiddos. We know that for quality education, that teacher-child interaction is imperative, but we have to get the teachers in the door first. And so there has to be a point that we look at, why would you want to be a preschool teacher out of high school or prior to going into college or for a career. It's not high paying, it is high stress. But there can be a career ladder built in so that this is not just, this is my first experience and my only experience, but this is an experience where you are going to learn about group dynamics and developmental expectations and the amount of transferable skills that a teacher gains in the classroom every day is incredible, and how that relates to the field of social work, like Ellen and Ty mentioned earlier, or to differing levels of education, whether that be funneling from us into the school system or from us to physical therapy, occupational therapy. I love seeing the teachers that come to the Learning Pavilion and seeing our speech therapists and say, I think I want to do that one day, and saying, all right, well, how do we get you there? What's next? But that is not applicable across the board to the rest of the field. When we're talking about real life, what can the CSC do right now, right? There's lots of overarching issues that are going to take a minute, right? Session takes a long time. There's checks, balances, things, papers to fill out, all the stuff. But something that I think would be incredibly helpful to our field is having a resource that is doing recruitment for this field, because it's not being done. And I get that at a workforce level, when you're only looking at that particular job level, it doesn't make sense. You want to bring people in to where they can make a livable wage. But there are ways, and there are career pathways that we can create for these students and give them the opportunity to gain experiences. I would love to see some type of recruitment of maybe a cohort, get them the training that they need, especially since, additional requirements are added every year. I mean, I understand it, we need it, but it's troublesome and it's hard for providers to keep up with that. If we could have a cohort and start looking at what does it look like to recruit, train, and then by the end of that summer, be placed into quality centers throughout the community, whether that be a job fair or strategic placements, depending on what that program would look like. But I would love for you guys to really entertain something that would help build and support that workforce that is supporting those kiddos. I think that we're going to hear a couple of different options today, so I'm going to stop with that one and pass it on, but I don't know if we'll have an opportunity to go back or piggyback on. Okay, cool.
Well, thank you, council members. My name is Roy Keister. My wife and I, Jennifer, own and operate Scottsdale Academy. 19 years makes me feel old. We actually got into this because we have 3 daughters. And when we were looking for childcare, we're like, there was a lot of places we weren't really excited about. So we thought we could do it better. We've actually, Jennifer and I say this from the bottom of my heart, have had the honor and privilege of caring for Dr. Glenn's children. So thank you, Dr. Glenn. You guys hear a theme: staffing, teachers. You can't have quality, just as Carmen knows, she can't run a good school without good teachers. You can't have quality if we don't figure out how to recruit and retain and attract these teachers. We get to figure out a way, and maybe this council can help, build power to the profession. And it's not just in ways of, Kim talked about showing potential candidates that want to get into the field, different pathways. Some things that I kind of wrote down. First of all, COVID changed the workforce. Just as we heard about rebound and recovery, we probably need rebound and recovery for teachers. Okay. But it changed the workforce. And, we have some things we've thought about. We have we don't have it here in this county. I think 4 counties have it, incentives. Maybe we could figure out a way to bring incentives into Leon County. I think there's ways to improve on that. Because currently there's no informal pathways. And I think we've got to think outside the box and create some informal pathways, and some suggestions would be create micro-credentials. Create a credential, an infant micro-credential. Create a preschool micro-credential where, incentives, the teachers don't get that bonus money till the end of the year. Our workforce can't think that far out. They see in shorter time frames. So if you create some micro credentials and say a teacher goes and they take 15 hours toward that micro credential, maybe they get a bonus then. And then they work to get 60 hours and then they get a bigger bonus. So think of ways of shortening that and tying that to some incentives with retention. The other thing I think is a huge opportunity we have in Leon County in our area. Working with the local high schools, we have Trojan Tots. We do a lot of stuff with Trojan Tots. It'd be nice to see that expanded to some other high schools throughout our county. The other thing we have FSU, FAMU, TCC, Flagler. We need to take those resources that are in our backyard and figure out a way, how do we build a bench and how we create a funnel for this workforce? So thank you.
Hey, good evening. My name is Tamika. I'm from Our Blessings Early Learning Center. We have a location in Monticello, and then we just recently, May of last year, opened up here on the Parkway. We've been doing this since 2005 in Monticello, and obviously since last year here in Leon County. I would like to talk about childcare. It's not daycare. What we are doing, we are honestly educating our children. And we always hear, oh, the first 5 years of life are so important. But when it comes down to it, when the money is being channeled, had it not been for COVID, we would still have been a forgotten entity. No one thinks about childcare. They're just playing. We're playing, but it's play with a purpose. We are giving these children a foundation on which to build upon. When I used to teach VPK, when my children left me, they knew their ABCs. We don't teach them in order because that's just repetition. We mix it up. So whenever they see the letter M or the letter X, whatever letter it is, they know that letter. They know the sounds that these letters make. They know how to read. When my babies left, they knew how to read. They knew how to do small basic addition. I would give them scrap paper. I put it on the board. I gave them tests. My kids were equipped. They knew what to do. My children have learned, we're not a daycare. When I first opened up, we were called Our Blessing Daycare. And that lasted maybe about 3 weeks. And I told my husband, I don't want this. We're not a daycare. We're honestly educating our children. And I think we need to get this message out. We are constantly talking about, K through 12, and that's wonderful. But if these children don't have what they need when they get to kindergarten, it makes the teachers' jobs there just that much harder. The teachers now in K through 12, they're struggling, but we're also struggling now because of COVID. I call our babies COVID babies. They're just different. They are totally different. But our teachers, for instance, with me in our Tallahassee location, it's myself and my 2 boys. And we are doing, I'm gonna pat myself on the back, we're doing an amazing job. Unfortunately, for a lot of the homes, there's no male figure in a lot of the homes. So what we have in our center, we have the men, there's Chris, there's Timmy, they're out there playing with the guys and with the girls, teaching them. We teach life skills as well as the foundation that they need in order to build upon. But if anything comes out of this, we all need help from beginning to end. So it's not just one thing. All of this fits together. How that's going to happen, honestly, I'm not sure. This is something that we're dealing with. I have people coming in looking for jobs, but they want us to start out with $20 an hour. They have nothing. They don't even have their 45 DCF hours. How are we going to pay you when you're bringing nothing to the table? Then we get people who apply for the jobs and they don't show up. We have a term, what is it called? Ghosting. It's called ghosting. Every week I'm getting people that's applying, but no one wants to show up. We need help in the worst way. The teachers need help straight across the board. Parents need help. The young lady who was talking about the rebound and recovery, we need that in elementary. I'm sorry, in early education and care. I took the trauma informed so I can become certified in that. I see it almost every single day. Our babies are suffering. I had a parent who called me on Monday and she said that I'm just taking off today, Ms. Tamika. I need a mental break. And I told her, I said, I commend you. Not only do you need it, your baby needs it as well. So
That's it. I'm extremely passionate about this. I love this field, but we're hemorrhaging. We need help. We need help desperately.
Thank you.
Thank you all. The one thing that I did want to provide, because it's been asked at the other at other types of meetings, is this is not a Leon County issue. We all know that this is a national issue and this is a state issue as well. So one of the questions that was asked throughout our entire needs process, and even as it related to this, was what is the legislature or what federal legislation that's coming down on this? So I did speak with Liz earlier today. She can't be here, but any follow-up questions will go to our ELC partner here, Ms. Melanie Worley. If you wanted to provide that there are two pieces of legislation, House bill and the Senate bill going through right now that may reauthorize the ARPA dollars to be spent on some of that initial recruitment like we had heard about previously. The current slate is set to expire on June 30th with all of the funds being having to be spent by September 30th. But if the legislature were to reauthorize, it would expand that. I believe it's to the tune currently in the budget, or the current ask is $4 million for, I think it's not just Leon County. I think it's the entirety of Big Bend.
Yes.
Right. So $4 million going to the ELC of Big Bend. But it would only go to programs that are contracted with ELC. And what that means is that they are already school readiness or VPK providers. So every family child care home would be excluded from that. And every, you're saying no?
Well, family childcare homes can contract with us.
Oh, well, the current list is what she was telling me.
Okay.
They can contract if they're licensed, and then they go through a few extra steps, right?
Correct.
Right. And I think currently the numbers in our community, and I could be wrong about this, but last time we checked, it was like 46 family childcare homes, and of those only 5 or 6 were licensed. So I'll pass it over to you in just a moment, but ultimately they have to be contracted with ELC. So anyone who's not contracted with ELC would not have access to any of those benefits of all of the providers that we have. So we know that the issue of recruitment and retention and all of that, I believe all of you are contracted with ELC. So y'all, the 4 of your centers would reap those benefits, but all the other providers in our community would not. So one of the suggestions was from that Liz had shared was that if you start to prioritize where you might want to go, you might consider that gap. So with that, that was the one update that she asked me to share.
What was Chair? The second piece of legislation is not germane.
So when I said 2 bills, it was that there's a House bill and a Senate bill. They're identical.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you both. I'm interested in hearing from Ms. Bruner. I know that the school district has a plan for having impact on the industry by sharing standards that we're sharing with providers across our community, particularly for providers found in those target areas where our footprint is where we're most concerned about the impact of early learning. So if you wouldn't mind sharing that with us.
I think that, are you speaking to the Florida Early Learning Standards and professional development related to that? Okay, so born of House Bill 419, we are all of us are required to be trained in the Florida Early Learning Standards. But what we are focusing on in terms of kindergarten transition is being able to provide private providers with some training relevant to the expectations of kindergarten. When the ELA best standards were rolled out 2 years ago, the department did a very nice job of creating a crosswalk between the ELA best standards, which would be the kindergarten standards, and walking those back to the Florida Early Learning Standards. And so what we have been working on through Early Learning Leon, which every person at this table serves on that committee, we've been working on supporting that kindergarten transition through professional development and through activities specific to private providers that will better prepare their children to enter the public school system in kindergarten and provide that solid foundation and show results on the kindergarten readiness scores. Did that answer the question?
No, but I just wanted us to share that information. And one of the things that we also did as a district was to provide the purposeful and intentional investment from our Title I funds to make available a full day childcare, particularly at our elementary schools that had early learning sites like at Pine View and at others. I'd like for us to talk about that as well.
Okay. 4 years ago, we expanded our VPK services in our Title I schools. Currently, the state provides 540 hours in a traditional school year for voluntary pre-kindergarten services. So traditionally, that looks like 3 hours a day for 180 days. In our Title I schools, we wanted to be able to provide an extended school day or a wrap care, if you will, to continue instruction after those 3 hours ended for the remainder of the school day. So we were able to invest Title I funds in order to be able to support those families.
Would you mind talking about what that impact has been?
It's tremendous. So before this, many of our students would leave at half a day. And so they wouldn't get all the goodness that they now get today because they get to spend a full day, but it helps parents out. So what the challenge was prior to that is that parents had to choose, should I just leave my child at home with my mom or have them come to this program, but they have to leave at 12 o'clock? It's easier for them to stay at home so that they can stay and work. So now, not only does this help our children have all this goodness in the day, but now parents can work a full day of work while their children are in school. So it's a tremendous benefit.
We had problems with attendance, as you can imagine, because parents had to sometimes make the awful choice whether or not, because they didn't have a full day. So that intentional investment, we haven't been, it hasn't existed long enough yet where we'll be able to really genuinely measure, but it was a purposeful investment to ensure. So here now, when I want to talk about Carmen for just 1 minute. When I ran as to join the school board, and I went to visit the schools in the district that I would represent, I went to Pine View. You may not remember this, and she told me, if you're going to run for school board, you've got to respond to the early learning crisis. And she talked about how a little boy would come to school and she'd say, "What is your name?" "Little Man." "What's your real name?" "My name is Little Man." And mind you, that child came from a center, but that was, so when she expressed that to me, that some were attending centers, but there weren't standards that were being, and that it was a difference between childcare and daycare. There wasn't a great deal of developmental play. I learned that from Bud Bell when I was on Kids Inc.'s board about the importance of developmental play. Right, but they did not have that. And so they were coming from these centers, but they did not have the classroom experience, environment from where they were coming. So they came to kindergarten. Why? All right, but so in response to that, to be able to devote the full day, then to provide standards, particularly in the footprint where we are most concerned, where we're having to have the greatest level of impact, because there was also the issue that providers were concerned that the school district was now competing with them in early learning. Companion to this, not only did we expand it at our sites, but then we provided this professional development model that we then took on the road. And much like our listening sessions, Brooke Bruner and her team went across the expanse of both my district, the other Title I school areas, and went to the providers that were in the shadow of those schools, talking to them about what we knew our children needed to know to be best prepared for kindergarten. And I can't wait till we start to measure that impact. So I just wanted to let you take a victory lap for the district, talk about what has been our impact thus far. Holly?
So really at this point, it was to kind of provide this kind of landscape for you. We had prepared a strategic framework that suggested actually some of the things that were mentioned here, not everything, incentives, talking about how to do like quality improvements and then kind of like as they earn certain things, that was in there. There's a couple of other pieces. So it's really we kind of felt this, the request from the council to take it kind of, I don't want to say back to the drawing board entirely, but to really dive deep and to kind of have the framing for the suggestions that we originally put forward were what we heard in the provider forums that we hosted, which has really coalesced in the kind of conversations that we've had here, a PR campaign that it's more than just daycare. This issue that we really have to address the talent pipeline for early childhood, and that we really have to understand the differences of equity and access. And those were some of the things we were trying to bring forward in the proposed strategic framework for this. So this was to help be your launching platform for the committee to make suggestions for how we would like to move forward.
Thank you, Mr. McFadden.
Okay, I want to, first of all, thank you all.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Is it Tamika? I love what you were saying, and I've been a huge proponent of like this, you know, that can't be childcare, really has to be early learning. And as you were talking, I was thinking about the Mississippi Miracle. I'm not sure how many of you guys have been following that, but they were always 50th in education. And over the last few years, they've bumped way up. And it's basically because they focused in on phonics on reading. And I don't know that any state that they really focused starting in kindergarten. I don't know that any state's really gone in and said, you know, based on national reading panel findings and everything we know, we should train our, you know, everybody in daycare in phonics, because I do think that would make just an amazing difference in the outcomes and the readiness for kindergarten. And you know, so I really love what you're saying there. And I think if we were going to provide additional money for training, that your point of like where it could go to make the biggest difference would be training on phonics and national reading panel findings and how to really impact learning. So thank you for that. I absolutely believe her. And then secondly, I wanted to address Kim and the I'm a huge fan of credentialing and workforce. I am very disappointed. I think the grant's due today from the Department of Labor. And I did send it to Jim McShane, probably not with a ton of time left on it, but that there was an application opportunity for career pathways in early childhood that is just about, I think it's due like in 2 days, but so it's probably a little late to go for it. But you know, I've been following that because, you know, the career pathway in early childhood, there's a lot of interest in how you do it, right? And then some of the challenges, I'm sure Daryl, you know this, with is that for a workforce board to be able to invest in the pathway, there has to be a industry certification at the other end, right? So what is that industry certification that childcare has, right? And until we fix that, then the legal way that it's set up doesn't work, right? So we have to go back and say, who do we agree is the industry certifying body? And so what I found, because I work with workforce boards all over the country, is that I can get around that a lot of times if they can show that the providers in that area have come together, have a wage that they can show a pathway, and they'll say, okay, we'll put you into an apprenticeship program, even though we've kind of gone around the system a little bit, and they have a little bit of flexibility there. So I do think there's a way to build the pathway if we're thoughtful about it. But we probably, you know, this is a way longer conversation than we can have right now. But I think that there's a way to do it. And I think part of what hasn't really been part of the conversation is what is that pathway, like, are the most eligible people to go into childcare folks that are in the after school system, and then, you know, they're kind of young when they start that, and then they move into, and if you could come up with what that looked like. So I think it's a great opportunity. I'm sad that we as a community did not apply for this recent grant, because I think, you know, it was something that was right there in our hands. And that we've, you know, as a community, if this is important to us, we should be paying attention to it. I know we didn't get a grant writer yet that I really, really wanted, because I would have sent it over to you guys, but that's one of the reasons I wanted a grant writer, because I feel like we need to take the lead on some of this stuff too. And I'd like to go back. I think it's in the budget.
Not a position, but.
But contracted, right? Yeah, so I mean, that's the kind of thing, if somebody was on contract, they'd be looking for this stuff, and I stumbled on it a little too late to really be able to make it work. But anyway, thank you all. Those two pieces really resonated with me personally.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So once again, I do want to thank y'all for coming. We sit here and we try to make decisions, and it's really hard, like Ms. Brown said, because we really need to understand what it is that y'all are dealing with on a daily basis. So what I heard loud and clear from you all is that staffing or workforce is definitely an issue for you all to be able to provide the services that you need. And I was trying to keep track of the things that you all, suggested. I heard like a staggered incentives type of program. I heard a partnership with some of the local institutions, like, the different schools, just creating some type of recruitment resource. You all are now here at the table in front of us. Like, what else? Here's your opportunity. Okay, good. I see you, Ms. Brown. There's something else that we can do to help improve the workforce. Here's your opportunity to say, make a wish. This is my wish. And so, Ms. Brown, I'll come up with you.
Here's my wish.
Yeah.
We have a program already called the Teach Scholarship.
Okay.
And the Teach Scholarship is a scholarship that actually pays for the up to the bachelor's degree, I believe. I don't think it goes to the master's degree level.
They do.
They do now? Okay, great. So they go up to the master's degree level. Brownsville, just to, digress a minute. That is all we do. Phonics, we teach 3-year-olds how to read. You walk in our building this time of the year, you will see the average 3-year-old that can not only read, they can write, they can spell, they can add, they can do all of those things. That does not happen without training. Okay, but guess what? Here's the good news. The good news is we don't hire anybody that really knows what they're doing. And that might sound crazy, right? My first thing is just get your 45 hours so I can at least let you in the building. Okay, and I don't care what they know. All I need is passion. All I need is someone who wants to work. And if they want to work, we can train them in that. The only way to teach a 3-year-old how to read is by breaking down phonics in its most molecular way. And our children can learn. I'm sitting on the Frenchtown side of Tallahassee. A lot of my parents can afford to come there. A lot of my parents cannot afford to come there, but thank goodness for the services of ELC and Step Up for Students and all those other kinds of things, we're able to get those kids in the building. So if there was something to spend money on, the Teach Scholarship, a lot of our providers do not utilize the Teach Scholarship because we also have to agree to pay. Okay, you were talking about social work students. This young man over here is a teacher in our building, but he's pursuing his master's in social work right now. Okay, but Teach Scholarship will not help fund him. He has to pay for his, but he's a teacher, So there are things that we can do to incentivize staff in our buildings through whatever, can be set up to help with that. Providers should not have to pay the difference for the Teach Scholarship if there is a system that can be put in place to subsidize that. It's not a lot of money, but guess what else? Once they have been in the Teach program, they have no commitment to stay with us for any period of time. So literally, if this is my last semester of school, I can come get a job with you. I'm on Teach. If I give you the Teach Scholarship, at the end of the semester, I'm going on to whatever I'm going on to, if that was my only plan and goal. But I think that utilizing that, because guess what students complain about all the time? Paying for school, and all of our schools in this area, I don't believe FAMU allows a Teach Scholarship, and that's something that, should be thought about. But Flagler, TCC, which have been the places that we have utilized, do. So if there's anything that you all can do to stand in that gap, that would be one thing. High school recruitment, you mentioned that, Roy. High school recruitment is really, really big. Guess what? When kids get out of high school, they're still only eligible for the minimum wage jobs that are available because they have no skills. Providers are going to have to also, pull their big people pants up and understand that we're going to be trainers. And we're going to be trainers that potentially are going to lose our staff. Because if we do our job right, guess what? They become more than what we need in that particular classroom. But that's what this young lady is. She's getting her PhD now, but she started out as an intern from FAMU, okay, who went through the program, who was an intern, did her practicums, worked with us for a little while, went to the public system. Brooke was her, I'm looking at her on my screen, okay? Brooke was her first principal. because she went to the public system. Why? Because they were able to pay more, you know? Yes, and that becomes a challenge that we also have, you know, in that, in the preschool places, that we're going to lose our staff. So if we don't create a funneling system up, this is not going to be solved.
But now let me ask this, right? When I was on the Kids April, right, back with Ann Levy and Bud Bell and Pam Davis, there was a program in place where they provided stipends for young people to come into the industry. In fact, in TCC, I think it was called the Eagle's Nest, was the name of the child care center at TCC. Those young people from TCC, they incentivized young people because I believe it was TCC who provided the certificate in early learning. So there was an incentive, it was incentivized to go into it because you got your classes paid for and everything, then you did your practical experience at the Eagle's Nest. And it was seen much like a developmental research program, because then what we tried to do then was to provide the best type of pedagogy to deal with the children in the setting, because we were getting the kids there and then we would then try out new developmental options and then use it at our other centers that we had in other communities, but all the innovation occurred at Eagle's Nest. So, but we as an organization, as a provider, made an intentional investment. I'm sure I'm not. There's also the workforce component. I mean, the industry has to also assume responsibility for preparing its workforce as well, and making that intentional investment or identify other options whereby those resources are made available.
Absolutely. And if we could somehow get Leon County schools to, you know, my granddaughter is in this, she's 15 years old, but she goes to FAMU now. What is that called? Dual enrollment. Dual enrollment, thank you. She's in dual enrollment, right? One of my former Brownsville babies went to Lincoln High School, and she got her credential, her 45-hour, work in the daycare center credential while she was in high school. And for the past 2 summers, she goes to FSU now, she wants to be a doctor, but for the past 2 summers, because she has her hours, has been able to come and work with us in an after school component as well. So there are lots of ways that we can begin to approach these students, even if this is not what they want as their field, to come in and stand in the gap and also learn. It is our responsibility as providers to train them to do the things that we need them doing. That is our responsibility.
I want to get some more responses to your
Final
question.
wishes. Yeah, any final wishes?
Yeah.
Gosh. Rita, you hit them all.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, it's, I think, like we talked about the Teach Scholarship, and that's gone through the Children's Forum. And the Children's Forum has a career pathway, but that doesn't fit every student. Just like not every student that graduates Leon County schools is made for college. There's different paths. We need to create those paths within our industry. And again, I think part of that is like through some micro-credentialing. It's almost like a skill. As somebody that graduates high school from Lincoln, but doesn't want to go to college and they go to Lively, or they get a skill set. We got to start thinking outside the box to expand our horizons. But then as we do that at the same time, show them other opportunities where that leads. Like they might not stay with us, but it gives them, it's the tree that branches out. Here, you're starting out at the root and then the tree branches out.
For me, I'm sitting here thinking, we need people to get through the door. ZipRecruiter is not working. I think it would be nice if we had mass media, commercials, maybe the commercial could say, hey, did you know that your local early education center, they're hiring, you get a sign-on bonus, reach out to your licensed childcare facility for more information. I think that would help. Put it on the billboards, put it on the radio stations, because again, not everybody is looking at ZipRecruiter, everybody's not online, but everybody is watching TV. Everybody is taking the bus. I was thinking about getting an ad
right there on the parkway, that nice digital one. Well, it's outside of my budget, we can't afford it. But if I had a wish list, that would be nice, and it would be able to include all of us, because you would just simply tell the public, reach out to your local early educational facility.
Is ELC doing anything in terms of workforce? Responding to the workforce challenges in the country? I'm sorry, your name.
Melanie Worley.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Ms. Worley.
So we do have a couple grants that are coming out soon. Holly started talking about it. One is a recruitment grant. So it's kind of like a sign-on bonus if a teacher has been hired between a certain time, then they are eligible to get a $700 stipend. We are also working on some professional development because there are higher expectations that the state around quality is currently asking from our providers, which is that the teachers need additional training for. So we are offering additional training to those teachers to become more quality teachers in the classroom.
Any other questions from board members, from council members? This has been, oh, yes,
I'm
ma'am.
gonna say one more thing, and I'm really happy about that, Melanie, and you guys have been a real support, during this time, so I'm happy for all of those things. But I want you to know that the classes that the teachers are required to take to get those 45 hours to get into the building and then to go on to the VPK certifications and things of that nature, to go on into the building, are still not enough to make a quality center. The only way a quality center will be put in place is with a quality owner who invests back into their staff and requires an environment of learning. It's like, you are what you eat. That is exactly what it is. And there are a lot of centers out there that are not providing that for different reasons. That's not a judgmental, statement. But I don't want to leave this conversation saying that training specific is going to create the quality, because that's just not true.
And before I go to Mrs. McFadden, I hate to put them on the spot, but I would love to hear any comments from our future MSW and our future PhD regarding this industry. Let's start with our future PhD ladies first.
Okay, excellent. I love it. My name is Courtney Wright. I am the Director of Operations for Brownsville Preparatory Institute and a former teacher of the wonderful Brooke Bruner at Oak Ridge. At Oak Ridge, yeah. We did great things there. So such a beautiful space. If I had to recommend anything within the early learning space, it would definitely have to be centered around, I'm pretty much gonna echo what everyone else is saying, is staffing. We are suffering a lot from the admin side with providing just staff members to be available, period. And similar to what you talked about, like I think the marketing, there has to be some type of address when it comes to marketing people to come out to recruit to our facilities within, especially within certain areas. So I think providing staff members to our facilities is going to be a big thing. And then also, investing in the teachers, and curriculum is key. So if there is funding that is centered around professional development that highlights phonics in a way where it holds, not only it provides teachers with the opportunities to, our educators with the opportunities to learn how to teach our babies phonics, but also creating a platform that holds these teachers accountable. I think in this new season, that's important. I do believe that there are a lot of resources that are allocated to facilities that are utilized, but when it comes to accountability, I don't see a lot of checks and balances going on. But I also don't coexist too much within that space. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you for providing me with that.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dylan Sheen. I work at Brownsville as a teacher, and I'm starting to help with the grant writing process at Brownsville. I would agree that frequent and meaningful investments in the teachers are very important. In general, employees want to feel recognized, and they want to feel like they are putting in meaningful work and they are being rewarded for that work. So I definitely agree that some of these ideas such as frequent investments in the employees, different pathways, educational opportunities, not just in the field of education, but for a general future for the employees is really important.
Thank you. Mrs. Brown, thank you for bringing members of your team with you. Mrs. McFadden.
I don't know the answer to this. I was thinking about Future Teachers of America. Do you guys integrate with Future Teachers of America and offer your 45 hours during the high school period so that when they exit the high school, they're ready to go right into childcare?
We have Future Teachers of America.
Are you speaking to providers or?
Well, anybody who knows the answer, do we have Future Teachers of America? And
Well, I know that we've talked about it, that they're supposed to be creating what they describe as teacher explorers, kind of like the police explorers, the fire explorers. But I'm not aware that we currently have those chapters at our high school.
I'm not aware of that either, but to answer your question, yes, through Trojan Tots at Lincoln High School, they provide that opportunity.
so they can earn the 45 there. And that's the only high school that does it?
Currently,
And do
yes.
we know what the outcomes from that are?
Yes, I can't give you hard numbers right in this moment, but I can give you a general idea that most of those students are not leaving high school and utilizing their CDA. They are either going on to further their education or they're going into different fields. And when we have asked them why, their response to us is that they cannot make enough money utilizing their certifications when they leave.
Is there an age limit? And I'm talking like, can you be 16 and work as a childcare provider?
In a supervised setting.
In a supervised setting. So even at 16 and 17?
So we do partner with Lincoln, and I know that there are students in that program that do go out into our private providers. And some of them also work in our EDEP programs after school.
And that's a good thing also. And if they can, and if that program could expand, number one, I'd be more than happy to, look into how to give them the things they need. But one of the reason that it's a good thing is because it'll break a ratio. You know what I mean? So if they are in their hourly process, you can break a ratio with them. A teacher can go to a restroom, a teacher can potentially, stay home when they're sick, things of that nature. So implementing and strengthening that program within Leon County schools would be major for them. And guess what else? Because if they go into good centers and good centers are talking to them about other career pathways and showing them how, because most students have to work now when they're in college, showing them how this will help. That's how I got my student back, because she was going to college, she needed to work. And I showed her how she could work, and I would work around her school schedule, even though she wants to be a doctor, because she had the credential already. So getting those credentials in high school is big.
And maybe finding out more about the Future Teacher of America has ever been considered for Leon County, because I know like at certain counties, they do it just to create that, what you're talking about, the start of that career pathway in high school.
And I'll tell you, we'll follow back up on that. I know Dr. Gale and the superintendent, but based upon conversations we've had at the district level, at the school board level regarding the same crisis, I can tell you when we were in school, when we graduated, the College of Ed was the second largest college to graduate after the College of Arts and Sciences.
It's still.
And I go to every graduation now for FAMU. And we do well to have made, and this is that spring commitment. Who does? And imagine that. And I remember we used to graduate well over 100. I mean, it was just amazing to see. But now, yes, ma'am.
But I'll comment on that. I'm actually a graduate of FAMU in the College of Education. And I think that one of the biggest problems that I had throughout that period was, and I once again would love to thank you, Mrs. Brown, was I had a difficult time passing that state test. And I wasn't able to graduate. I had to sit out an entire semester in order to pass that test. And it took me 6 months, and I had to pay in addition to that, I had to pay out of pocket to pass that test in order to do my internship to even graduate. So that was a huge, huge struggle. And I know a lot of my colleagues during my cohort dropped out of the program and switched over to interdisciplinary studies or criminal justice. Because the coursework with criminal justice, the coursework aligned. But they switched over to interdisciplinary studies so they could graduate. So where we saw our friends graduating in 4 years, it took me 6 years. I did some traveling internationally throughout that process. Shout out to FAMU. But it took me 6 years to graduate, and 1 semester was a sit-out year.
Did you do compact where you went abroad to teach?
No, I did Camp Adventure, which was yep. And then I was on a grant program to travel to Cape Town, South Africa for to implement international entrepreneurship within education. So 2 separate things, but I'm passionate about international education. FAMU has a lot of great programs, but within the College of Education, the decline and the common theme that we heard was because of the state requirement of passing that test to graduate from that particular university.
See, the response I'm hearing now is that, I mean, all we have to do is read the newspaper to see how at present in this current environment, the word I'm looking for, the valuing of the profession and the digs that it takes, and I'm certain that, and then the salary that it pays, right? So I can imagine that also having impact. So anyway, Holly, Ms. McPhail, Mrs. Green, thank you all for convening this discussion. Thank you for everyone who's come to participate with us today. This has been a very robust conversation, and I want you to know that we look forward to how this will ultimately inform what will be our grant process moving forward. It will also inform us as persons who, along with Ms. McFadden, will be making decisions relative to what will be the responses that come to us through our solicitation process. So thank you. Thank you. Y'all have, this has been a learning experience without the formality of the chalkboard. I want you to know.
So, Chair Jones, if I might just provide quick next steps.
Yes, ma'am.
So again, thank you all so much for coming, because I think it's really important to hear from the people that are doing the work every day. So at our next program services committee meeting, we want to bring back some elements of the strategic framework for high quality early learning, using the information we've heard here. Not only our needs assessment, but what we've heard here. But in the process, we'd love for you to contemplate everything that you've heard, look back at the strategy we currently have, think about the engagement that we already have with the ELC regarding that on-ramp program, and go ahead and provide us your feedback, anything that you are thinking, so that we can use that to bring you a really good draft of that framework.
All right. Thank you so very much.
I'd like to also extend to anybody that would like to come and tour Brownsville and see what it looks like and see the possibilities, please feel free to let me know.
I would love to, yeah.
Please just reach out and I will make that happen.
Thank you to all of our presenters. We appreciate you all, and thank you for doing the work you do in an extraordinary way.
Thank you.
Now, you may feel free to stay, or you may feel free to get on with your evening. It is completely up to you. We have a little more work to do on the committee.
I'll go to dinner.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Next item. I really love that logo.
Isn't it fantastic?
I'll show you.
Yeah.
I've never been.
Oh,
That is,
So
that logo.
So this is the logo, just very quickly while we transition. This is the logo that the public, so if you remember, we had 3 versions and we put it out there for our constituents in Leon County. And actually we got comments from out of Leon County talking about how nice our logo were, but this is what was selected. I have to tell you, it was our favorite. Well, except for just had a different choice, but we have brought her around. This was our favorite to,
It's really,
visualize what we hope to do and what we know we will do in our.
and I like the way we've used the iconography right here on our own podium. So I mean, that's just really good sense. So we're gonna move on to item 6, update on procurements for family support services. Let's agree.
So thank you, Chair Jones. So you will see, you should have in your packet a document titled Statement of Work Update and Discussion Point. So if you recall at the last council meeting, the council did approve for us to move forward with those strategic initiatives under family support services. And we wanted to give you an update on that, but we also have some discussion questions that we wanted to ask as we get the scope of work formulated for the first 3 pieces of that. So I'm not going to read because you have it here. We'll just summarize that for our timeline purposes, the procurement to select the provider for FRCs will be done as an ITN. And we expect that the provider, got it? It's right after the agenda. It's right after the agenda. That. Yeah, I don't know what it is. Yeah. No.
Okay.
No.
Oh, that's not it.
Well, you provide the one that's right there, Michael Bryan.
Sure will.
There we go. Okay, so our chair is set. So again, it will be an ITN, and the successful provider will be offered a 3-year contract with options to renew. For parent education and family strengthening, that will be released as an RFP, and the providers will be offered a 2-year contract with options to renew. And then as we discussed, the mentoring programs procurement will be as an RFA, request for application. And they will get a 1-year contract with an option to renew. It is important to also note that the options to renew for the most part are one-way, because as you go into each of those years, we stop, the first year objectives will be small, then you move into the next year and then to the 3rd year. So that the option is at the discretion of the CSC, depending on how all of those outcomes are achieved. With the mentoring, I will tell you, I was the one that was a tad bit insistent on at least offering an option for another year, although we expect that those will be short contracts moving through.
See, can I ask a question? Are the statements of work something we can review?
We are in the process of finishing those, but those will be presented March 23rd.
Statements, I thought,
To the board?
To the full council.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Shouldn't the committee see them first?
Well, in the recommendation,
I thought, no,
go ahead.
I thought that the recommendation coming from this committee was that you be equipped
To go ahead
and post the RFP,
yes,
and that was the motion that we made.
it is, but we did want to at least present those statements of work in case there was any input before we move to RFP,
Well,
but not to the committee, to the full.
that's not,
council.
because what, as I recall, we talked about this specifically, it was regarding the timeline. We didn't want to be, we wanted those things to hit the street before we came back to meet again in March. And that's why we, by virtue of the motion that we made, we talked about this specifically, that we would talk about it as a committee of the whole, any concerns that we all had individually regarding the statement of work at the next meeting. So that's when everybody had opportunity to weigh in, and then y'all would be able to leave last month's meeting to be able to put this on the street. That was a
That was not for this. That was for the previous one, correct? That was What was the last one that we did?
I thought it
Not
was-
early learning,
That's
family support.
Yeah, this is what we're talking about.
No, this is for early learning.
No,
This is
Oh,
for
this is
family,
family
for
support.
family support.
it's for family support.
You remember we talked about it here as a committee. We said we would take any input we made as a committee relative to the statement of work. We made that as a committee. We moved that as our recommendation. And then we said we would take it to the committee. And and the motion that was made was that y'all would be equipped. I mean, so if we're taking the statement of work back to the full board, that means the recommendation that we made. You know what I'm saying?
I thought that this body was going to review the statement of work
Correct.
and not take it to the full committee.
No. I guess, and maybe I got it wrong. I thought that that the recommendation was to move to the statements of work and just bring it back to the full committee for the full council, just to review before we move forward. Our timeline says that the procurement for these would be April.
Let's see.
So they hit the street in April.
So the thing for me was there was a concern that the bureaucracy that we put in place belabored us getting the monies on the street.
Right.
And that's what was our concern at our last meeting. Now, I appreciate us bringing the statement of work to us, but if we've got to take it back, then that's
what I thought we did. I
that's
thought.
the antithesis of what we wanted to do.
Well, let me say this, if I might, if we bring the statements of work back to this committee and not to the board on May 23rd, that is gonna throw the timeline off.
Okay, but
Because that means it
Can't they be
wouldn't come.
emailed to
yeah,
us?
can we see them?
You can't make any decision via email, though. That's the only problem. Now, you can see them and provide input.
Yes, can I get that?
And that's what we remember, but that we had and I'm not saying anything bad. What I thought was that we felt that based upon the robust discussion we had about it, that we trusted you all to capture all of our concerns as a committee. And then we also, remember, I set it up for the board. Got any questions? Because after they leave this, we're empowering them to create the statements of work and to put the money on the street.
So if that is the case,
Yes.
when we leave this meeting answering these questions, we will move forward. Now, we can email it
Yes.
and get separate input, but you will not see the final product. You cannot. So here's my concern. If we don't take at least take the statements of work to the council, we are going around the RFP procurement process. Because technically the council is supposed to approve the RFP, and the meat of the RFP is the statement of work.
I think we're saying the same thing, but it was my understanding that this services committee was going to review the statement of works and give the approval. And then we say, okay, we like this, we make changes to it. Then you say to the council, this has been approved by the program services committee. We are moving forward with this.
Yeah, no, that wasn't mine.
That was my understanding. Yeah.
As well.
And what I'm proposing, if you don't mind, please, I'm proposing you send the statement of works to us, let us provide feedback via email, and then present it, and then to the council say, we've gotten the feedback from the committee and that we've incorporated their feedback and we're ready to move forward, unless you feel as if it needs to come back. I don't want to mess up the timeline.
I don't want to mess up the timeline
Yeah.
either, but I just think that we are making this rather laborious. And I just think that we will be forever, when we, and this is what came up in the conversation that we had last month. If we have to, committee gets it, we take it to the board, then it goes back to the committee, then we take it back to the board. That's
why I'm proposing we don't take it.
Yeah.
I don't think the board needs to. I feel as if this committee is the one that says, we agreed on the statement of work, we're good with it. We're letting the board know.
right.
They can,
So this is what we can do. So you cannot approve the statement of work via email. So you can't do that.
I think we're asking just to give.
No. And I think I'm gonna get where you're going if you'll allow me. I didn't mean to interrupt. So what we what we can do is we can email you the statements of work. We're not gonna email the whole RFP because all of that is just.
Correct.
Email you the statements of work individually. You can give us your input. We can incorporate that and email you a final.
Okay,
We can put it in the consent agenda
okay,
of the May 23rd meeting. And so when the consent agenda is approved, that will approve the statement of work and it won't throw the timeline.
Okay. That I
You can
am
do
happy
that.
with. Does that work for the two of you? Mr. Chairman?
So and listen, I take full responsibility. I clearly did not get that.
I did not-
Correct. from the meeting.
Again, I did not think it was going back to the full board at all. I thought the whole point. But that's fine. I just. Because it's what the way we're going. So here now today, we got a program services committee meeting. We're not managing the next sets of RFPs that we. But okay.
Because if we had it today, then we could have done that today, but we don't have it today.
Well, now, we would have been writing 24 hours a day for the last week to try to get you 3 statements of work for today. So that is why my understanding, and again, it clearly was my misinterpretation, that we would take the statements of work to the full council. That's what I thought had been approved.
Okay. Well.
But this is what
But let me tell you what I would like for us to do. I would like for us to talk about the way of work as it relates to RFPs. Because one, well, first of all, there's more than just this. There's also the issue of bringing on the type of staff or consultants to manage the volume of work that we have the potential to do. I don't know where we are with the staffing plan. I know that was supposed to have been.
It goes back to the executive committee.
And so once we come, April.
It goes back to the executive committee at their April.
So I just think that there's a.
For their request.
Okay, I just think that there's the potential is great. The need is clearly present. And I just want us to, we're no longer in the interim director or the new director. The honeymoon is over.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
It's over, right? You know, we've had our cake now, but now, and then we've got a year's evaluation, which was extremely positive. We've got we're fully loaded thus far, and we're prepared to be even more loaded. And I just want to see us get that money out on the street.
I'm there with you.
And so that's all I'm saying. And I don't, is this committee, I mean, since the RFP process seems to reside with us, do y'all have an appetite to talk about it as a committee first?
So
about the schedule?
Let me clarify. What I'm hoping is that we kind of see the strategy, we see the scopes of work, and if we're comfortable and if we approve it, then we take it to the council. So we have blessed this, we want to move forward with this.
Because what may be the way of work is that when we're considering these, like for example, at the last meeting, maybe the last meeting could have, as we get ready to roll out the remaining grant categories, maybe, that's why I'm saying a way of work conversation for us is that maybe we start with a preliminary statement of work as a part of the process for the evaluation, right? Such that we then see that statement of work, provide our input, take it back to the board then makes its input, and then it comes back to staff for us to provide our final, but that's not the way it's set up presently, right?
This board meeting.
Right.
Where we talked about the fact that something came to the full board, hadn't gone through the program committee, they hadn't signed off, they were upset. They said, where our expectation is the program committee deep dives and then it brings it back and that gives us the comfort to move it forward.
Right.
So I don't feel like just having this as a deep dive personally.
And that was my understanding too, because I'm sorry, Ms. Gray, that we were the ones that were looking at the scopes and approving it. And then telling the council, we have reviewed this, we're comfortable with it, we would like to move forward with this.
So here's what here's what would make me feel comfortable. And so I've tried to debate whether I wanted to say this or not, but I'm just gonna say it, and where it lands, it lands. I am hoping that the council is beginning to feel comfortable with the work that we do. And so when we are having to create, bring, then bring again, then create, bring again, it belabors everything. And so as I'm sitting here thinking, I'm wondering if as a program services committee, you all want to come up with how you want the RFPs done in writing and take that to the council, and the council blesses that process, then we don't have the ambiguity anymore. So if it is once the framework is approved, and then the framework goes to the council approves the framework, then the staff is empowered to go ahead and do the statements of work and send those to you all as we get them done versus having to wait for this meeting. And as you get them done, by the time we come to the meeting, those are final changes, and then it's approved and it moves forward. So I think part of, at least for me, clearly, because I got it wrong, there is a lot of ambiguity in how the council wants this done, number one. And number two, I definitely want to feel that we're empowered to do the work. And that is not necessarily where we're feeling right now. We are feeling like there is not a move we can make unless it is blessed and blessed and blessed and blessed and blessed. So I think that if as a committee, you can decide how you want that process, and then that goes to the council.
So can we please do that at our next meeting? Let's just talk about the way of work moving forward. Right? I think that's a conversation worth having. As it relates to what we got on the table right now, you're going to forward the information to us for us to review, provide the final grace over.
Well, what we need is for the questions, and we don't have to go through them here. There's some questions that we need you all to give us input so that we can create the final scopes of work.
Can I make more comments?
Yes, ma'am.
What I would like to see is the process written out. So it's in black and white and it's in writing and everybody's aware that this is the process. And then I remember that we said everything was going to go through the program services committee because that was what the council members had issues with. So if you know, we write out the process, even if you send it to us in advance of these calls, of these meetings, and we have an opportunity to review it just briefly, and then you say, okay, this is what we're moving forward with. We want to take this, you know, get this approved at the next meeting. If y'all have any questions or anything like that, we give you feedback and then it just shows up in the consent agenda for the next meeting. I think that process works well, as long as it's written out and we know, and that we have an opportunity to review it before it goes out. And I don't think it's a matter of mistrust at all.
No.
Yeah, I don't think.
That's what I thought.
I trust you guys. Yeah, I do, honestly.
And I thought that's what we did at the last meeting. I really did. So we talked about the whole notion of trust.
Yeah.
And being empowered to leave the former,
Well, I know, I'm sorry.
ready to move forward, and that it was done, they weren't getting it anymore.
And I could have sworn one of the council members said that they would see the scope of work. So clearly, I got all miscombobulated. It happened. So you want us to create the process, send it to you all. You all look at it, decide if that works.
There'll be a point of discussion at our next meeting in April.
Okay, but for the purposes of the statements of work, we do need to get them blessed by the council at the next meeting.
Can we do the process that you suggested?
And so
Do it with your process.
the concept is you all are going to provide us input on these questions.
Correct,
We are going to create the statements of work.
correct.
We will send them to you.
We provide written feedback
Provide written feedback, and we will include all of that written feedback
in
before
the
we,
consent agenda.
right,
Okay, all right.
for the final. But we're going to send you all the final before we put it in the consent agenda.
Perfect, yes.
So that you will have it. If you have any other questions, we can make that change, and then it'll go in the consent agenda. I'm for March 23rd.
I'm comfortable. We'll do that moving forward.
Okay.
We'll revisit the way it works. So I just.
I have one question, and
Yes, ma'am.
it's a
What you got?
sidebar kind of thing. So under the scope of work with the Family Resource Center or Parent Resource Center, whatever you're gonna end up calling it. How much money is that and how many centers?
It
30
is,
centers total over.
hold on, 1.2 this year with, look, basically it's 3 centers because one would have to be here, then 2 more. It would be 1.2 the next year, and then it would go up to 1.6 the following year with an additional center. So the goal is by 2025 to either have 4 centers in place or that, is it 4, right? 1 here.
It's
I thought it was
2
3
here and then that third one. So it's that's in the.
By 2025, we want to have 4 centers. That last one would probably be in process.
I clearly remember 3 centers.
It's 3.
Yeah, 3 centers is what I walked through remembering in my mind there.
1 here,
Family.
2.
4 centers.
I didn't know one was here.
Okay, that, we talked about something else, so that's okay. Yes, we want to put 1 adjacent. Wow.
I thought the family resources centers were being chosen by the respondents.
It is, but we'd like to have 1 adjacent to this office. And then they would help choose the second 2 locations.
All right, anything else?
The discussion questions, right? You need answers to these?
Yes, you can email it.
Oh, email.
We'll
Okay.
email, I think I did email it to you,
Okay.
but I can re-email it out.
Okay.
It sent it to me, so it's not my thing. Anything else?
I'm sorry, I do need to ask
Yes.
a question, real quick question. So for question number 3, that was the only one I was a little bit confused about. And the question was thought requiring CSC Leon funded programs to prioritize a minimum percentage of slots for families residing in targeted zip codes. But I thought that the purpose of the family resource centers were to be in the communities that they're serving, right?
They are, but anybody could access them. So it's a matter of ensuring that a certain percentage of the dollars focus on specific people from those targeted neighborhoods. But anyone could walk off the street residing in another zip code, and when they take that information, we just want to be able to say, we want to make sure that the majority of this money is helping the people in this neighborhood. So
Okay.
that's what that question.
That helps me understand it, because I wasn't understanding that. It's like, if it's in that community, I'm expecting that only
You're not-
people from that community would be accessed.
If I take a bus and come to this one, I'm not gonna turn you away because you don't live in this community. That's what that means.
That's helpful. Thank you. All right.
One last thing I'd like for us to consider, and I'm gonna bring this up at the council meeting for the purposes of our annual budget. I don't know if I know we may have contingency, but I would also like, a citizen brought an idea to me that perhaps we should have money that is held aside for emergency situations.
We have that too.
We have that?
Yes. You have 2
We do?
separate within, yes, the.
Well, it's a reserve. I think you're talking about something different.
Well,
Yeah.
we have an emergency one, if a hurricane or whatever.
Okay, so we do have,
2% of the 10% set aside.
oh, okay, so if there's some, okay.
I thought you were talking about.
Yeah, I was talking about, like a natural disaster, if there was some,
Yes, we
Any-
have that set aside.
anything that comes up that we would have the discretion to be able to make money out, make a decision regarding making an allocation outside of the budget for an emergency situation, we can do that.
Correct.
All right.
So can I just say what I thought you were talking about?
What's that?
There are CSCs that hold what are called emergency funds for the public through providers if that funding is needed for a specific thing. That's what I thought
Well,
you were
yeah.
talking about. That's different from the reserves for any emergency. So if a family is about to be evicted, I'll use that as an option. Something has happened, that family is about to be evicted. That's what I thought.
Oh, no.
Okay,
I don't know if you want to get into that.
okay, I'm just making sure.
No. I'm talking about if
A building collapses.
Orange Avenue had some crisis.
Correct. That is
Orange
set aside for that.
Orange Avenue had a crisis like where children were subsequently impacted by that. We'd be able to
We
provide
just,
emergency service.
yeah, we do have that.
2% is set aside.
Okay, that's what,
Correct.
no,
We do have that.
who knows? Goodness stuff. All right, anything else? Everybody said.
Yes, well, are we done with the agenda?
Was there anything? Oh, yeah, announce the meeting. April 6th.
Yeah, the next meeting is April 6th, and let me quickly go through other meeting agenda items. So in addition to the process plan, we're gonna present the program services spending plan, so you can see what we're proposing for that. Finalization of the high quality early learning strategy. And we'd like to present a possible program on small investments for program success. So those are small micro grants, for lack of a better term.
Okay. Okay. Anything else?
No.
I wanted to ask Carmen, are you sure this is your last meeting? Because my understanding is that you stay on the board until your replacement is done.
I thought it was this is the last program meeting, and then the next meeting on the
23rd is your last
my
council
last meeting.
No, but Liza's right.
No. Clarity.
You're allowed.
We got clarity in that she is allowed to serve until her replacement is named. However, Principal Connor has said she needs to step away when her term is over.
Oh, okay. Thank you for.
She has big things popping upon you, and she.
She does.
Very good.
And I was happy
Yeah.
for her to make the public announcement that for our young people who are our youngest learners who have become discipline challenges, they come to Pineview. And I can tell you that's going to make a huge difference. We just talked about this issue at our last board meeting. And my colleague, School Board Marcus Nicholas, is continuing to champion issues relative to discipline. So they weren't finding themselves in environments where they were, influenced by all grades. But here in a elementary school setting with elementary school resources, we'll be able to provide the type of nuanced instruction as well as care that those young people need. And I can't imagine a better place than Pineview. So
That was it.
Nice, thank you. Sorry to, I was trying to get you to stay longer.
I figured that I was doing it.
Literally. Yeah, a Title I school takes a lot of extra work and a lot of extra sacrifice. And so working the 10 and 12-hour days, and I do Saturday school from January to May. I teach Saturday school because I don't have the teachers to do it. One, I drive the bus to pick the kids up to bring them.
Oh my God.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
So 70, 80 hours a week on top of extra. And I have adult children, but I still have a little bit of a life, I'm tired at that point, but it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot, but.
Well, thank you for your service. You've been appreciated. You've been a great. And when you go out, drop them.
And can I also add that I am the one who influenced Carmen to apply. She was like, I said, no, please. And I was just so delighted that she was chosen. And you see the impact that she has had.
One more thing, last thing, our council meeting on the 23rd will be held at Pine.
Oh, so it's great. Yeah.
You know, it's my birthday.
Well, we're gonna celebrate.
I turned 53.
What's gonna happen?
That is awesome. Wow. Okay. Good. Congratulations.
Oh, we have to-
Oh, we adjourned.